Hey guys, this is Chad, and today I am building the perfectly silent computer, except it's not going to be perfectly silent yet. This is part one. I've still got a couple parts coming, which are ironically the silent parts. But in the meantime, we're going to use a couple different parts to put it together and test everything out. And then in a few days, I'm going to do another recording and put the silent parts in. So the parts I'm waiting on are the power supply, which is a fanless power supply, and this really big giant heatsink fan that Noctua makes that doesn't need a fan on it, as long as you don't tax it too much. But I'm trying to build this low power, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. What have I got here? I've got some fun stuff. I've got my CPU. This is the AMD Ryzen 5 5000 series processor, 5600G. This processor cost me $120, and it is way faster than it has any business being for a $120 processor. And of course it has built-in Radeon graphics with Radeon graphics. And it comes with a heatsink fan, and because I'm waiting on my super quiet heatsink fan, this is the heatsink fan that I will be using today and in this video. These fans, it's got the pre-applied thermal paste. Usually I would replace that with some better paste, but again, this is just going to be on here for a few days, so I'm going to go ahead and use that paste. And of course we got the processor. If we can figure out how to put this back in the box to keep it protected. There we go. So I actually have in my regular computer, I use a stock AMD cooler. I've been thinking about replacing it, but I'm not sure that I'm going to, but you know, it gets faster when the processor gets hotter. So there's the chip, the Ryzen 5 5600G. Should we try a close-up on the camera here? Oh, look at that. It's got a little fancy AMD sticker too to put on your case, if you're into that thing. And probably data sheet or something in there. Okay, so that's our CPU. The memory, because I'm a cheapskate, I looked for the cheapest I could find. I really wanted to put 64 gigs in, and so the cheapest deal I could have found would have been like 170, 175, 180, somewhere in that range, depending on what I decided. But Micro Center had an open box on this G-Skill with LEDs, which I wouldn't pay extra for LEDs, but I will take the LEDs if you give me a discount. So $146.96 for the RAM. That's read just some specs. Of course, they're all covered up. It's DDR4 3600, 32 gigabytes times 2, so it's 64 gigabytes. And the motherboard that I ordered can support 128 gigabytes, so I could theoretically get a second kit later and expand to 128, which just seems ridiculous. But anyway. And then the motherboard, these ones I got from Micro Center, but the motherboard I ordered from Amazon because Micro Center doesn't seem to want to sell inexpensive boards. I don't know, not enough profit margin on them maybe. So I ordered this board from Amazon. And it's a B550-A Pro from MSI. I like MSI boards. I try to get MSI boards if I can. I haven't really been terribly disappointed with MSI boards. A build I did a while back, I started with an ASRock board. I don't know how you say it, A-S-R-O, whatever. ASRock. And it was fine. I actually had some bad memory in that computer, so when I was troubleshooting, I swapped out the motherboard and went with an MSI. But anyway, this was a nice, inexpensive MSI board that is, it's the regular size ATX. It's not a micro. Doesn't have built-in Wi-Fi, which I didn't really want. Just more things to make the board hot, right? So yeah, it's just kind of the most basic MSI board I could find that had the big heat sinks on it to keep everything cool, since we're gonna have, this is gonna be a fanless build. So let's see, figure out how to open this thing up. Doesn't look like it has a seal, just a hard to open box. Alright, comes with a CD. Oh, look at this. They have a sticker badge in a little container to protect it. These lovely little M2 screws, which I never seem to have enough of, so I'll probably lose track of them though. Documentation. Quick installation guide. Yep. The things I really need to know. Okay, there you go. The jumper or the pin settings for the wires for the front of the case are there. But you know, I always want to know which slots I'm supposed to put the RAM in, and this doesn't really say. So I might have to go look that up. Got that back panel plate and a couple SATA cables, which I am not going to need for this build. And of course the motherboard itself. Put it in this box here, which I guess that wasn't too difficult to pull out of, but I thought, man, why don't they just make it a little easier? Alright, we got the anti-static bag, we got a piece of tape which doesn't seem to want to come out. And there's the board. I'll get a close-up on it for you. Oh, getting glare off my bad lighting. Alright, it's got the massive heat sinks here to try to keep things cool. Since I'm not going to have a fan in here, it's just going to be convection moving the air up. Or up if I have it like that. Or up like that if I have it like that, you know. So we got this for the CPU power, 24-pin connector. This is a big heat sink that comes built in to sit on top of your SSD. And since this is the lower end board, the higher end ones have an extra spot for a second SSD, which this has, but it doesn't have the fancy heatsink for the second one. But if I wanted to drop another drive in there, like a cheap, inexpensive one, just to have a lot of storage, it's nice that it's there. But yeah, various pins and connectors. Got a little switch there for, I don't know what that is for, off and on. I'll have to figure that out too, I suppose. But yeah, the heat sinks look good. That's what I wanted. Spot for the RAM, spot for the processor. And one thing I didn't mention was the SSD, which I saved for last, because this is probably the most expensive component of my build. That's a Western Digital Black SN850X NVMe SSD. You know, I had different things that I wanted to do, or different ideas that I had about the SSD for the storage. I was maybe going to get a small drive that was high performance for the installation, and then another drive for storage. But I thought, I'm not sure. I should really get something bigger, you know, at least a terabyte. And then Micro Center had this pretty good deal on this drive, so I finally decided to go with it. It's 2 terabytes, which should hold enough. You know, the main thing is in this computer, I'm building this computer so I can record audio and video, and that's why I want it to be perfectly silent. In fact, I could tell you a story about hard drives and quiet computers. Back many years ago, well, maybe I'll show you the case first. So I got the case at this computer thrift store we have in town here, where they fix up computers, and you can volunteer to work there, and then you can learn how to fix computers. But they also run a thrift store, and they have used computer parts at the thrift store. So I thought, they have some old cases there usually. I should be able to find something. I wanted something that was open, but like Antec makes this open case that's really nice. It's like 160 bucks. It's all cool looking, but it's 160 bucks. So I thought, I'll go to the computer thrift store, find something that'll work. And so I picked up a couple cases, and the other case that I picked up was my main choice. But this one is the one I decided to use after I got them cleaned up. partly because the other case I would have had to leave the side panels off for lots of airflow, but this one had this wonderful gigantic acrylic window in it that I removed, so now it's completely open. So if I have it set up vertical like this, which I probably will, you know, the air can flow in from the side, and it can, with the hot air, the convection will carry it up and through this nice big vent on the top. That had it had a big fan in there that probably works, but I took it out because this is a fanless computer build. So yeah, it's I did a little research on the case. It's a little bit older. I think it's from, I think there's a sticker on the bottom that says 2012 it was inspected. But that is the case, and we're going to build in there. Okay, so back to my story about silent computers. So my first computer was a 486, if you can believe it, and that CPU had no fan on it, just passive cooling. And so the only fan in the computer was in the power supply, so the computer made a fair amount of noise, but you know, it wasn't horrible noise. But I upgraded the processor in that computer with a kit that Intel sold. It was called a Pentium Overdrive kit. So you bought the kit, and then you replaced the 486 chip with this Pentium Overdrive chip, which wasn't really quite a Pentium, but you know, that's what they called it. So I put the Pentium Overdrive kit in it, and the Pentium Overdrive had a little fan on it. So now my computer that was relatively quiet, which had been relatively quiet, I should say, was now not so quiet because it had a little fan in there. So I think the first computer that I built, you know, I put it together and it was kind of loud and I didn't like it, but it wasn't so much that it was loud as much as it it had a high-pitched whiny noise, which was from the CPU fan. So I did all this research to try to figure out how to make it quieter, and you know, I used bigger fans, and I modified the case to use bigger fans, and I put a better heatsink on. But in the end, I got that thing so quiet because the fans were so quiet. I was sitting there at my desk, and I heard this noise. I thought, what is that noise? I could hear the hard drive spinning and clicking away, and I'm like, what is going on? I made this thing too quiet. Now I can hear the hard drive spinning. So the reality of a truly silent computer build, you know, was not a reality at that point because you needed the hard drives and they made a lot of noise. But today with SSDs, no moving part in an SSD doesn't make any noise. So it is possible to make a truly silent build. I've made, you know, I always try to keep my computer some quiet, but I've made efforts to have the computer different amounts of quietness over the years. A little bag of screws there. These are mostly leftover parts from cleaning up those cases from the thrift store. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 posts that we need. So I'm going to have to go get some more posts. I thought I was mostly prepared, but I guess not prepared enough. Okay, so I once bought, a few years ago, for the purpose of this computer, you know, the recording video and sound, I bought a HP mini PC a while back, which of course is not fanless. It has a fan in it. And it can get kind of loud if you're doing high power stuff. But I actually built a little box, a quieting box that was, I don't know, yay big and yay tall. And I put quieting foam on the inside of the box. So I set the PC inside the box with the quieting foam. So even though it had a lot of ventilation from the front to the back, it had this quieting foam. And that worked relatively well. It certainly wasn't perfect, but it worked okay. It wasn't a real powerful computer though, so I wanted something more powerful, more quiet. So I ended up getting a Microsoft Surface tablet. It's a Pro 7. And the Pro 7 series had no fan. If it got too hot, it would throttle the processor down, of course, which was not fun. But, you know, that's the way it goes, right? But I use that, and occasionally when I'm running my test videos, the video would stutter. And I'd be like, it's probably running out of RAM, because it's only got 8 gigs of RAM, and you cannot upgrade the RAM in that thing. So that's really what sent me down this line here to build, because I was thinking about taking another mini PC and maybe removing the fan and putting one of those massive heat sinks on it, but trying to do that is kind of a pain. I was thinking about other things, but I thought, you know what I should do? I should just bite the bullet, and buy the components that I need, and build a computer that's going to be quiet for me. So that's what I did. And here I am working on it. All right, I'm going to go get a couple more of these posts because it looks like I'm too short. Although, they might not be as far as I thought because I brought my little computer toolbox down here. It's not that big. This big. All right. This isn't the only thing I have like this, but this is one thing I have like this where I've saved parts from old computers. And speaking of which, I would probably have trouble, well, maybe not too bad, maybe if I put a micro ATX in it, getting enough of these posts for my for that other case that I picked up at the thrift store. I don't have immediate plans for it, but I thought I'd save it, maybe use it someday. Alright, just matching these up. Looks like they're going to do. These ones have a little bit shorter post on them, but as far as the part that screws into the case, but I think it's going to be fine. Need a pair of pliers to tighten those down since I don't have quite the right size. I'm back to it. So, like I said, I'm planning on changing the heatsink on this thing. It used to be that if you were putting on a special heatsink, you needed to have the motherboard out of the case for rear access to the CPU. But I am hoping I'm not going to need to do that today or when I rebuild this thing, not rebuild it, but when I replace a couple parts in a couple days, because look at this big hole here. Big hole. That gives you back access to the backside of the motherboard. Of course, these are not threading in nicely like I want them to. But I'm sure that it's going to be fine. I probably should have done this part as prep work. There is no reason that I needed to share with the world putting in the posts to hold the motherboard. I guess my thinking was I wasn't absolutely certain where the holes needed to be. Just scratched the paint on the inside of the case. So yeah, I picked up these two cases at the thrift store like I said before, and I washed them all down pretty good, although I still see there's occasional little bits of dust here and there. But yeah, I dismantled the case a little bit. Like I said, I took the acrylic window off the side, and there was a plastic part in here which I thought was really weird, but it's what held the hard drives in, because you could have put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hard drives in here, plus 2 little hard drives, like laptop style hard drives, and the plastic bracket that held the backside I pulled out. I maybe should have left it in there. It might have been offering some rigidity support for the whole case, but I think it's fine. This little part here, you can't really see, but in here, where it's bonded together, it was just kind of clipped together like the plastic part was clipped together. So I did throw some epoxy in there just to make it really never kind of fall apart kind of deal. So, you know, this thing will probably last forever. Probably won't want to use it forever. Could potentially maybe upgrade the processor someday, but I don't know. Let's see, one thing I can say about the processor is that 5600G, they actually make some OEM versions. There's a 5600GE, and the 5600GE is basically the same processor. It's a little slower, but it's a 35 watt processor instead of a 65 watt processor, and that means less heat, which means fewer fans, which means quieter. So yeah. All right, let's see if I got these posts in the right spot. Sure looks like it. Yep, I think I got them all right. All right. More screws. I was putting the case together and putting some screws in to hold these side panels here, which you probably can't see. I was thinking about, oh, I got some little black posts in here too. Could have used those. All right, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like I got 6 of this kind in the black, but I need 8. So maybe I will just pull out 8 from here. 1, 2, 3. Riveting video, I know. All right, before I forget, I'm going to put this back panel on. Maybe I should just clip it in place. Alright, fitting these in can sometimes be a little tricky, I suppose. So we'll start at the bottom, pop it in on the corners, and on the top, and there it's in. Alright, now we'll put the board in. And it's a tight fit, but it is in place. All right, now we'll put these screws in that I so painstakingly took all that time to find. That's what I get for not buying a new motherboard, or a new case, I mean. Buy a new case, it comes with all the screws that you need. Screws in now, just tighten them all up. Thought I had them all tightened up, and I went back and I found one that wasn't, so it's a good thing I went and checked again. So I have a feeling I'm going to be doing this a lot, lifting this up to show you. There's the motherboard in the case. And it looks like I have plenty of access on the bottom side. And I want to swap out that cooler later. Ryzen processor. Alright, I really want to leave it up so you guys can see me put it in, but I'm going to set it down. Line up the corner pin to the corner pin. Till it drops in nice. Put the arm back. And there the processor is in. And now we're going to put the RAM in. Don't see anything on the board that indicates how the RAM should be placed. So I'm going to place it like I placed it in my last board, which was also an MSI, and hopefully continues to be that way. Yeah. And they repackaged this RAM. They put it in kind of askew. Let's see, I always love when you buy a RAM kit that the numbers are sequential for the serial number. This one ends in 3857, this one in 3858. Ooh. I recently did a RAM upgrade on one of my other computers, and I didn't get a set of 4, but I got 2 sets of 2. But they're sequentially ordered in order from 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, they actually end in 1, 2, 3, 4, which I think is really nice. So I imagine what happened is that, they came in a box in order off the assembly line. Oh, these RAM things, they only have they only lock in on one side, or the other side's permanently locked or something. So I don't like that. I want to be able to push them in on both sides properly. I wonder if that little quick start has any insight on that. I better take a quick look. The picture on the thing has them unlocking on both sides. So that's a pretty useful quick start that isn't even accurate to the hardware. Alright, I think I got it seated in there properly. It's really kind of weird though. It's probably cheaper for them. They save a few cents here and there, but it doesn't really, I think, increase the customer experience at all. So seat the one side and then seat the clipped side. It seems to work. Alright, the RAM is in. Let us take, I don't have the right screwdriver for that. let's take this. All right, let me show you. There's the RAM. Imagine that's going to light up with LEDs. The processor's in, the RAM's in, and I'm going to take this plate up, which is for the SSD cooling. Alright, so we have a little screw on this side, a little screw on a peg on that side. So this screws in on the top of the mounting where the SSD makes contact, and this one screws in on the other side, holding it down but spacing it away from the motherboard. It's got its own peg in there too, but anyway, hopefully that means it's all proper spacing. It looks like there is a plastic cover on here with probably just some thermal pad there to transfer the heat from the SSD to this heatsink. It's not a super fancy heatsink. It's mainly just a chunk of aluminum with some ridges in it, but it is, I'm sure, better than nothing, and it it's included in the price, and I didn't have to pay extra for it. Alright. So here's our SSD. Little tiny chip. Holds 2 terabytes in super fast manner. Looks like I'm going to need one of those little screws that came with the motherboard. I thought it was a little tiny Ziploc bag, but it's just a heat seal there. We're going to cut it open. It looks like they're all 3 the same. And will this screwdriver fit that screw? It will, but it's not ideal. Where'd that other screwdriver go? I had another. There it is. Oh no, that's the bigger one. That won't work any. Oh, it does work better. Okay, we'll use that one. Alright, SSD, and all the chips are on the top, which is nice for the cooling effect. So, where's that? Theoretically now, this thing is going to sit on top of this thing just like this. Oh, I'm like, what's that hole for? That hole there is so that if the screw is like not, it won't sit nice, it won't scratch up your thing. But yeah, if it fits perfect, it'll just go right on there and make contact with all the chips and keep them cool, which is nice. Alright, so this goes in. Insert, sort of on a spring load kind of deal. Get our little tiny M screw ready, M2 screw ready. Put it down, put the screw in. And I'm afraid I am a little inadequate on the lighting here. Yeah, it's going to be a little tricky getting that in there, I think. Alright. You might have to move it down the table. Let's get a little more light in there. I think I got it. Success! Alright, SSD is down. Now, in my haste, got got those things a little bit lost, but they're not lost. I got them. And we're going to peel this off. So we have the thermal pad underneath. We're going to set that down there. And I think that the thermal pad is making contact there because there's no flex in the heatsink. Make sure the screws are down all the way. Alright, there we are. Got the SSD in that you can't see, got the RAM, got the CPU in. And next, I'm going to put that heatsink on. Now this, like I said before, this heatsink is the factory one, the OEM one, that came with it. And this is just temporary for a couple days till we get the nice, quiet, fanless one in. And it looks like I'm going to have to remove these clips that are on here. I thought maybe this would just clip onto the clips, but it looks like it screws down to the same back plate that these clips are on. You know what I mean? These clips here, if you had a cooler that would clip right onto these plastic clips. So I'm removing the plastic clips so I can screw the heatsink down. Now, it will be ironic if I need to put the plastic clips back in for that massive cooler, but I really think that massive cooler is going to have some kind of special heavy-duty mounting. So, yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at the threads here, and it looks like the same kind of threads. So that will just screw down. It's probably some kind of AMD standard. And of course the plate fell off the back. I was hoping it was kind of stuck on there, but if I need to take it off, or the other one, it'll be nice that it's not really stuck down. Which means, this would mean the plate fell off the back. There's the plate. Which means I'm going to have to hold that on the bottom while I screw this down on the top. But yeah, this just connects like that right through the board. And of course the pre-applied thermal grease will match up with the processor and it will just be running like it should. Alright. I didn't think this would be so hard to line up. There it is. Alright, where are the screws? There they are. That'll work with my regular big old number 2 screwdriver. Looks like I'm going to plug the CPU fan over there, which means I guess I want to go this way. Yeah, because then it encroaches on the RAM that way. Again, with the better lighting would be handy. Alright. Actually, over here it might bump this heatsink. I don't think it will, but we're going to go ahead and put it in the other way. But yeah, the edge of that fan would definitely be hitting a RAM stick right now. if there were 4 RAMs in those slots. So I'd have to put it the other way and hope that it didn't bump that other heatsink. Alright, it's kind of fixed on there. Now I can tighten these screws down. All right, tighten down. And we'll set it up again, and you can see that now I have the heatsink on the CPU, which has a fan, and this is a fanless build, but like I said, that's going to be gone in a few days. We're going to swap that out for another one. But I had all the parts I wanted to get this thing tested. I had most of the parts. The other part that hasn't come yet, which is supposed to be here tomorrow, is the power supply unit, or the PSU. And when I was at the computer thrift store, I picked up this because it looked like it was nice, and I opened it up and cleaned it up, and it looked, you know, it tested well. I put it on another computer that I don't care about as much, and didn't fry that computer. So it's a Thermaltake Tough Power 700 watt ATX. It's old, but you know, it'll do for now. It's modular, but I really don't understand why the power, the extra power for the CPU is a modular cable, but this power cable here for the graphics card is not modular, which, you know, you always need a power supply, you know, you always need a CPU, but you don't always need a graphics card, so why didn't they make that modular? Anyway, it is what it is. So, I don't know if I want to screw this into place, but I will. Maybe I should go ahead and put these on first. We got a couple USB 2 ports, and we got audio port. Looks like we got 2 USB ports standard in here and a USB 3.0. So I've got a USB 3.0, which I'll plug in later. And I've got USB, which I'll plug in, and then there's like an extra USB. Maybe I'll put that on something else, or maybe I just won't utilize those 2 USB ports. We're going to skip those for now. But we do want to plug in power switch, and maybe the reset switch, and maybe the power LED. So I think this is the point where we're gonna need that that front panel diagram, because sometimes they print it right on the board, but not usually. So anyway, all right, here we go. Front panel diagram, JFP1. We got 10 is our dead pin. Of course, I'm upside down. Huh. And I'm super overexposed. The lighting. So we got a power switch goes down here. Try to pretend I'm left-handed so I don't block my lighting. Power switch. And reset switch goes on the opposite side. And power LED plus and minus. Again with the left-handed to not block the lighting. And the HDD LED does not have a plus or a minus. But we're going to follow the idea that black is minus because that's the way the other ones are. And we're going to plug that one in right there. Alright, we're going to do cord management later. For now, we're going to set this power supply here where it's supposed to go. And we're going to run this power up here. And we're going to not do anything with the graphics because we're going to be using onboard graphics in an effort to not introduce another heat source. Although I kind of wonder if maybe having a real graphics card would lessen the heat on the CPU. But such is the way it is. There's a USB port on the motherboard. What is that for? Huh. If anybody knows what that's for, you can comment. But that's kind of weird. That's probably like for power or something? I don't know. I mean, you know, to power something inside or maybe to control something inside. Like if you had a fancy light system in here, you'd plug it into that USB port. But yeah, motherboard has a lot of stuff I'll never need and never use. I could have certainly had a micro ATX, but I feel like the cooling is better on the full-size ATX. So. Plus, the only board that was an MSI board that was cheaper didn't have the cooling, and it had built-in Wi-Fi. It was a micro ATX, so that's why I went with this one. All right, I think we are just about ready to test this thing out. Although I think I did not bring a power cord, so I'm going to have to go get a power cord. I got everything else ready, though, I think, more or less. Let's set this back here, maybe. Got a monitor here. Maybe we should make sure that the monitor cord is going to plug in. It's a display port, but I think we got a display port on this motherboard, and we sure do. So the display port goes in there. And maybe I have a power supply cord in my box here. I do. Look at that. I don't have to run and get a power supply or a power cord because it's right here. Alright, we'll put that in. Power supply is turned on, but we're going to plug it into a power strip that's turned off, which we have here. I'll show you that there's actually outlets on there. Alright, that's turned off, and we're going to put the computer in there. And we're going to put the power cord for the monitor in there. And we're going to plug in a keyboard. If you did not know from my other videos, I'm a keyboard enthusiast, so we're going to use a Model M because why not? A little stiff going in there, but I suppose it's a brand new computer. Never had a cord plugged in before except maybe for testing at the factory. Alright, and I just grabbed a mouse. Put that in there. And I think we are ready to turn this thing on. Power on. You have any lights on the board come on? Often a board will have a little light on it to let you know it's hot. Oh, I suppose I better plug in the CPU fan too. Alright. Kill the power. Plug in the CPU fan. Act like you're a professional, Chad, even though you are not. All right, got the CPU fan plugged in. Power on the power supply, and we're going to try pressing the power button. And we got power! I'm so happy. It's nothing like building a computer, having it come on and not come on. Oh, look at the LEDs on that memory, I tell you. That was worth saving $25. We're not getting anything on the monitor yet. It's the first time it's ever come on, so it's... Did I just see a spark in there? I'm going to have to watch that video back. There's definitely like a flash going on in there. Oh, we got something on the monitor. Maybe it's just that light flashing and reflected off of something else that made me think that it was a spark. I think it was just a flashing light. Whew. Oh, we still don't have anything on the monitor. I mean, it's been going on and off. It's thinking, but it should be doing something. There, it's back on. Oh, there we go. It says something anyway. Oh, yes, we got BIOS. All right. This is going to be the end of the video here pretty soon because we are going to play around in the BIOS here and then we're going to be done. But, let's see. Yeah, you can see the screen there. We got the CPU. It's got information about it. It tells you it's a Ryzen 5 5600G with Radeon graphics. Motherboard temperature 29, CPU temperature 34. See, it's a cool processor. That's why I bought it. Hopefully 65 watts, when I get that big CPU on there, it'll be able to cool it even under full load. So we'll do more testing on that later. Maybe I'll include that in the second video, or maybe I'll make a part 3 about that kind of stuff. But anyway, let's take a look at the storage. We got the Western Digital Black SN850X2000 in there with 2000.3 gigabytes. Look at that, they gave us an extra 0.3 gigabytes. No charge. Memory. The memory is, it's 3600 RAM, but my understanding is that, yeah, it says right there that that's what it is. It's my understanding that it's going to run at 2666 unless you set your overclock settings for 3600. So maybe I'll do that, or maybe I'll just let it run at 2666. I don't know. I'm not planning on gaming on this computer, and I've never found that I need the memory to be super fast for gaming anyway. Let's see. And it will probably run cooler if we run it at 2666, which with a fanless computer, it's probably important to have cool memory. Speaking of cool memory, it's flashing, so it looks cool. But the first thing I thought when I thought I'm going to have lights on my RAM is that's going to introduce more heat into the case, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's about all we got. We got the CPU fan showing that it should get, I think that tells you that it will go up in speed if it gets hotter. But yep, I think that's everything. The computer works. I tested it and it works. We're not going to install Windows until we got the super silent cooling on it. So I think that's the end of the video for now. I think I'm just going to go ahead and shut this thing down. Kill the power. Unplug everything. Try not to destroy the display port by actually pushing the release button to release it, rather than just yanking it out. All right. So, that's the end of part one. That's the end of part one. Join me next time when we're going to put in the components to make it a truly fanless, silent PC. I got the power supply coming tomorrow, and I got the heatsink coming the day after that. Until then, we got it put together, we got it working, everything works. We just got to get those fans out of there, and it will be a truly silent build. All right, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.